Welcome to Live Action Star Wars Presents Data Link. I'm Ralph.
I'm James, and I'm blown away by that amazing new intro. Man. That's the first time I've
Really?
seen it. It's so cool. I love
All
it.
right. We were just talking about it before the show. I've got some issues with it. It'll probably be fixed by next week or in 2 weeks. But yes, today we are discussing, this is our first Data Link episode. We're discussing the Galactic Starcruiser. And we're not doing it alone. He just arrived back on Earth from wherever the Starcruiser takes you. I don't know. I have questions.
I do too.
You know his work from Portroids. It's Rick DeMint. Rick, good morning.
Rick.
So we found out. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, James and I came up with this whole data link thing. And like while we were doing that, you sent me a text saying, "Oh my gosh, I go on this Galactic Starcruiser in 2 weeks, and this is going to be when I'm going." And I'm like, "Oh, you just happened to get back the day before we do our first data link episode. Please come on and talk about it with us."
Because perfect.
But for those of you that don't know, data link is not necessarily live action Star Wars. It's anything Star Wars related. So any sort of news, any sort of like up to date stuff. It's not a review of a movie or TV show or trailer or anything like that. So
or Galactic Starcruiser. This isn't going to be a review. This is just going to be an open discussion about it.
And I'm fine with hearing opinions.
Definitely opinions.
But yeah, mostly this is going to be a Q&A. And like I said on our last week's regular episode, which we covered. What did we cover? Oh yeah, Battle for Endor.
Your favorite.
We're gonna bring
How could you forget?
We're gonna bring the. Yeah, I know it's been a long week. Both James and I are sick, by the way.
We podcasted together twice last week. There's some sort of computer virus. We've got it.
So I've got everything I need in case shit goes south. But I wanted to bring people into the chat as well. Jeremy Kelly, how is everyone feeling this morning? Good enough to do the show.
Yeah.
Good enough to do the show.
Excited to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah. I'm really excited to talk about Galactic Starcruiser because I find it interesting, and I find that online it's very polarizing.
Yeah, very controversial for people. Yeah,
but
Star Wars being controversial,
I know, right?
Never happens.
But before it even opens,
yeah,
people calling it, "Oh, it's a bomb," and I'm like, it's a hotel.
And it's been there for what? It's been open to the public
2 weeks now.
2 weeks, and already there's the articles about them struggling to sell out and everything, and so on and so forth. But
assuming it's a gigantic hotel, I have no idea.
It's not that big. I think there are maybe 100 rooms. It's not huge.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
That's more of what I was expecting based on the price and the level of experience that it seems to be that everything is going on there. So I wasn't expecting it to be a massive thing.
That makes more sense as far as the price point goes. For me, that makes sense.
And price is the thing that everyone talks about.
Yeah.
And I'll just say this up front, just, when we looked at it, we're like, okay, we'll do this for some huge special occasion in a few years. And then as it was coming closer, we just thought, let's do it immediately. Yeah. Let's find a way to make it work. Luckily we kind of had, we both got bonuses this year. So we're like, all right, that's going to help us. And we were able to cobble it together so that we could go. And we wanted to go early so that it wasn't, all the details out in the world, which of course they are if you look for them.
Right.
But I just tried to stay away from all spoilers before we went. Just like, I just need to get through 2 weeks, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, and also the previews that they did for certain people. So, but definitely anytime it comes up, how could you spend that money? Or, is it worth it? Like, these are the questions that the first thing anyone asks is the money.
Like,
and
value for anything is go on, Ralph.
Right. I was gonna say, just so everyone knows too, that Rick isn't part of the sort of big press event where they invited everybody but live action Star Wars to participate with.
Sorry, guys.
Next year.
So Rick is getting the actual experience. He's a
Joe Public
paying customer.
Yeah.
Joe Public, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to. I mean, I looked at some of the stuff that came out a couple weeks ago, and it was all super positive. But I started seeing people show up in other people's feeds, and I'm like, oh well, yeah, it's a big party amongst people who know each other from a community.
Influencers, like you said, so
Absolutely.
they're there to promote the event or the cruise.
It's a mini Star Wars celebration.
I don't think that they were all told you have to be positive about these things.
No,
like I know that people definitely had their criticisms even on those press events, but it feels like, if you're getting given that experience, people they're gonna be putting all the effort in because they know that everyone that's going is filming, everyone is doing their blogs and everything. So like they're gonna put on the best possible version of it, which is great. That's what you want from any opening of anything. So that's cool. But then you do have to take those sorts of things with just a pinch of salt, I think. Like, but to get yours, Rick, is like we're 2 weeks in now. We're getting the honest, like, this is what it is really like.
Yeah, and I'm just going to give you this review quickly, just to lead into it. After the cruise, we interacted some with guests that were on there, but just kind of like, as part of different missions that were happening. But we didn't say, hey, how are you enjoying this? Like, what are your feelings? But after we got off the ship, like you go in the transport to the terminal or whatever, we're staying there in the taxi line, waiting to get a cab out of there. And there were some guys that were in the room across from us. So we saw them throughout and we'd say, oh, hi, hey, neighbor, and then just go about our business.
Yeah.
And so my wife, Erica, she said, I want to know how they liked this, So she walked over to them, well, we both did. And she said, what did you guys think of this? Did you like it? And they just stood there and stared at us for a minute, like a little bit afraid. And then she chimed in. She said, "We loved it," and they just relief came over them. Of just like
that's Star Wars fans.
Yeah, Star Wars
really
fans,
afraid
like they're afraid to be a little bit like open about it because they don't know how we responded.
That was me coming out of Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because people that was controversial also.
Yeah. But I came out and I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. After we said we loved it, then the guy just said that doesn't even cover it for me. He's like, this was so amazing. It was the most incredible thing. No one's going to understand this that hasn't been on it because it's something you go through. And they said, before I went, people were just like, oh, how could you spend money just to go on a cruise and, play space bingo or whatever, like people just disregarding it without knowing anything about it. And we were just like, there were so many moments where we had tears in our eyes and we all like started tearing up at the end of the thing.
Amazing.
Just like the fact that it was over and that like, we had this group experience and we hadn't interacted with them at all. And we're just kind of like this shared thing of Star Wars, and just like you're living it. Let me liken it to this. Ralph, you've been on Rise of the Resistance. James, you haven't had a chance yet.
Not yet. No.
It's like that for 2 days straight.
Amazing.
Just like that level of interact. And so it's just coming back from it, you're feeling like, wow, but and again, you want to talk to people about it, but you don't want to spoil it because there's so much to it. Like if I had known the storyline or any of that stuff before, it'd be like, oh, okay, I'm expecting this, I'm expecting that. So we went into it blind. It's going to be hard to do down the road because you're going to hear so much along the way, but it was just, I don't know. We loved it. We had such an amazing time the whole time.
That level of immersion that you're talking about, like I've not been on Rise of the Resistance, but it sounds to me so similar to the experience that I had when I left the Secret Cinema event that was in London a few years ago for Empire Strikes Back. And I've talked about it on an early episode of Live Action. But that sort of immersive thing where you can talk about it and you can explain it to a point, but unless you are there, it's so cliche to say, but unless you were there and lived it, like you can't tell. You can't explain exactly that feeling that it invokes in you. I love that.
And it's tough also because you don't want to build it up so much that when someone goes like, oh, I'm disappointed, this just seems like some improv show, like,
Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't
that, but you know what I mean? Yeah.
The and I'm wondering how long, because you got in here pretty quickly, so the people you see as far as the characters go are the people you're seeing like in like the press releases and the commercials. So I'm wondering once those start, if those will drop off in the future.
It's like seeing a Broadway show with the second or
with the
third
original
cast.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because after we got back, I was like, okay, I'm going to look to see what other people posted about this now that I have done it. And so many of the pictures were people that weren't the people on mine. So they have a rotating cast, because these people, they can't just do it, every 7 days a week, every week, for, I would say the characters themselves are probably 8 hours straight, starting at like 2 p.m. through 10 p.m. every day. And then there's other stuff like, well, I mean, I don't want to get into too many details, but you board at like between 1 and 4. Mm-hmm. And character interactions start kind of early in the, like kind of 2 to 3 o'clock. And then the next day you go to Batu in the morning, like 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. you're there, but you can come back to the ship whenever you want. That's cool. And so when you're back to the ship, like people, you start seeing the characters showing up places between 2 and 3 o'clock. And, the show or whatever goes until 10, 11 p.m. Where they're literally present, and I don't want to say I haven't given you guys a chance to ask questions, but I'm just like, I'm so excited. I want to jump into it.
Yeah, keep going. It's great. This is good.
But, so the characters, they're doing their thing, and then they'll come up to you and interact with you, or you can just go up to them and say, hi. So because I do the Polaroid thing, like I would just go up and like, hey, can I take your picture? And then they'd start asking me questions, and then they would say, hey, can I get your help with a thing? Or Ralph, I think you mentioned very early on at Galaxy's Edge, like Vi Marati came up to you with like some like secret or like an encounter, right? And you were like, hey, like it was a little bit of a surprise thing. That happens throughout this as well. Just not Vi Marati, I'm not saying, but like that type of thing.
Yeah.
So you can pursue missions or things, and there's like an official storyline that follows through the whole time, but then there are all these little side things going on, like again, I don't want to give any spoilers about things that happen, but as you probably know, there are like first order people present. So I have these like that's on this arm, like these fake code cylinder things, you know what I mean? They're really just like chalk dispensers that I found online for $4. I was like, great, it's better than paying, $50
looks great
through Star Wars, through them.
That's good to know.
So, yeah, right. I got them through Amazon for, like a couple bucks. So anyway, I was walking down the hallway, and like the Imperial officer came up to me and he said, something like, some code words related to the First Order, and expecting me to give a response, like the appropriate response, and I refused. And then we got a back and forth. He said, if you have those code cylinders, you have to, and he had 4 of them, he's like, you need to pay respect and you need to give this and that. And I didn't. And then it was witnessed by some crew members. And so then they came up to me and they said, hey, come with us. And they brought me into like a secret room where I had a meeting with like 3 characters. It was me and like a tiny child. There were children, not a ton of them, but children, and then his parents. Like, there are 4 of us in this room, and we had this amazing little side mission, and it was just like, are you kidding me? And then another character had pulled me aside and like, I need your help, and we're gonna go steal this thing. And like, we just randomly walking through the hallways of this, like, again, I'm rambling because it's so exciting.
No, it's good.
Like the atrium is the big venue where a lot of the action happens. But sometimes it's just kind of dead. There are a lot of dead times where just not the big key moments happening. So you can go into the little sublight lounge bar, or you can go, specific areas. So
do they have like sort of like PA announcements when things are going down?
They do. If something big's happening, they're like, hey, gather here, but like they give you a data pad. Like if you go to Galaxy's Edge, you can go into the data pad. They actually give you a loaner like iPad. Or not iPad, iPhone that has only the data pad on it, so that you don't have to use your own phone and this and that. And so all your communications from the crew or from the characters come to you from there. And so you'll get, but Erica and I went different paths. Like we started out the same way, but she's like, she kind of leaned to the dark side. I mean, she's like, I'm going all First Order stuff. And so she got in really good with the First Order side, and I started getting in good with the Resistance side. So our missions started diverging.
That's cool.
And so I'm like, I need to go. I've got something to do. And I'd like run off to a little secret mission, and then she'd be off in some hidden room talking to the First Order. It's just like, okay, go ahead.
So it sounds like a lot of your storyline came from a natural interaction based on just something you were wearing. Like, so I've seen that a few people, like, they would have conversations, people would start talking to them, and then they'd be sort of almost assigned their role, or they get to choose their role based on things like that. But the fact that yours came just from that interaction is very cool to me. I think that's really good, and that shows sort of a level of training that the cast members have all had, that they can identify this sort of thing and roll from that.
Yeah, these cast members were supreme. Like, they were so good. They had such a level of like improv skill that you couldn't believe the detail that they knew, and just the things that they would say, like the very quick comeback. The First Order guy was hilarious. Like, he had like such a sarcastic wit, and just like, so I like Erica, my wife, as I mentioned, like, she was kind of leaning that way, and so she's just like, you missed out. This guy was so funny. Like,
that's great.
She had kind of betrayed the First Order at one point, and so like he kept calling her out in crowds. And like, you have to go to your cabin for the rest of the night. And then she showed up late for another like secret meeting. And he's like, oh, are you kidding me with her? Like, she's, and just like all this kind of fun stuff. But then like she gave away some secrets about the Resistance. So now she was on like his good side again. And again, that was my fault because they're like, don't tell anyone. And I was like, hey, I just had this fun encounter. I told her. And then she found a way to get into some fun Resistance encounter. And then she told the First Order about it. And I'm just like, but anyway.
But I think that's the key though. Like, you're playing into your characters. You're taking your role and you're moving with it. I think with anything like this, if you can buy into the immersion, and if the world is immersive enough, then you're gonna have so much of a better time than if you're just like, there's some actors, whatever.
Right.
Like, if you go in with that attitude, I don't think you will have a good time. Like, with anything, but with this sort of thing, I think especially. But
yeah, you have to play into it, and
you go with the flow. Like, definitely.
Yeah, as someone's coming around, and I made up like all this like character stuff for myself in case it came up, and I'm just like, no one's gonna ask about it. Like, they'd ask where you're from, and I'm like, oh, Dantooine. And they're like, oh, what's it like there? I was like, oh, it's you kind of make up stuff, or they're like, oh, I've been there, it's this and that, and you're like, okay, good, you just sort of make up things, and you want to have it flow into the thing. But other people were, I'd say about 70% of the people were dressed in Star Wars type clothes. Like, I wore this jacket, but I also had like a black jacket, and I had different things. I didn't wear, but like people would just have Star Wars t-shirts on only, or like jeans, and you're like, okay. But I'd say about 70% of the people did cosplay type of things.
That's good.
Some
I feel like it. I feel like if you're gonna fork out the money, you kind of want to.
Yeah, you kind of want to play into it. Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, I don't think Ralph or I are big sort of cosplay people. I've got a lot of respect for it, but it's just never been for me. But when I did the Secret Cinema, that's the same sort of thing. Like, they really encourage like dressing up, and you're assigned a role beforehand and that.
Oh, that's nice.
And so I got a rebel pilot in that, and my ex, who I was with at that time, basically it was Jedi robes. It wasn't Jedi. It was sort of like, because of the time frame, it was like there's no Jedi around, but it's like force sensitive sort of
sure
secret Jedi. And that was the same thing, like different roles, different paths and everything. And you do just buy into it. And I think for something like that, when everyone else around you, or at least a majority of people around you, are playing into it, it adds so much more to it. Whereas if you go in and everyone is just in jeans and t-shirt, then it will take you away. Yeah,
it did take you out of it a little. I see a comment in there, that you, about not wanting to see people in cargo shorts. Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
There you go.
Yeah, because you're in there and you want it. It does take you out of it a little bit, but you're kind of also like, all right, well, I'm playing with these other people then. Like, these are part of my storyline. These, you know, and again, I'm not blaming anyone that didn't like put the time in to build a, you know.
Yeah, no one's asking you
together,
to have a full Mandalorian suit or anything.
There was a guy in a full Mandalorian suit.
That's great.
Yeah. Wow. So I think he must have been 500 first, because he, like, a couple times he was in that, but he also had just like really like movie accurate looking other like casual clothes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this guy's like he's
for those
a
guys. Though,
cosplayer.
This is the pinnacle, isn't it? Like for the people that do that, that is their passion. That is their Star Wars thing. Then doing something like this has got to be like, top.
Yeah, and I kept thinking. Oh, go ahead, Ralph.
No, go ahead. It's different.
I was going to say, I kept thinking, oh, it's going to be cheesy, or it's going to be, you know, like seem silly, because you saw. Like, I did catch some footage of like the line dancing and this, and I was like, oh no, you know, like, but you have to take in mind, like, if you've ever been on a cruise, it's a cruise, but it's also in the Star Wars universe, right? So they have some cruise elements, you know, like, hey, we're going to do not bingo, but a game called Sector Set, where they're calling out the numbers and like you're building these universes, and, you know, but most of and I did see the line dancing thing. It was maybe a 20-minute segment in a 45-hour thing. Yeah. You know, we walked by as, you know, 10 people were doing it. And we're like, okay, keep going. You know, like, we didn't participate in it, but they had little activities during the times where there weren't like major mission events. But you could just walk to the bridge and, you know, go on there and something's happening. Or you could walk to, you know, you get your code and you get in the engineering room and there's all kinds of things. And I should say there are probably 10 to 15 characters that you can interact with, but all the crew, and I'd say there's probably 100 people working at, you know, at any time. Like, it's very populated, but every one of them that we interacted with was, you know, like, they had the story down. They were part of the story. And so anyone that you interact with, you know, you're on the cruise line and you are going to these planets, you know, you're doing this and that. And so it was all, I mean, everyone played into it. Even when I needed someone to break character, so I could be like, I need to know how to get to the airport from here, you know, and like it took I have to talk to my deck supervisor. It's like, okay, just tell me how to get a taxi when I leave here, you know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, dude, just like out of character right now. Like they almost know it needs to be a code word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott D wants to know if cosplay weapons are allowed. Blasters.
I didn't. Let me think. I think I saw some like on like people's hips, but I didn't see anyone, you know, like waving weapons around. People would have like lightsabers. People would have lightsabers, for sure. And but like,
when you're going into Galaxy's Edge, like as part
anything you can have in Galaxy's Edge, you could have on here.
Okay,
but if it looked like a real weapon, you know, like if it was probably frowned upon.
Yeah.
So a question I have is, I've seen a lot of the pictures from the entrance where it says Galactic Starcruiser and the big concrete
the concrete wall,
the terminal.
Like, does the hotel look like the outside of the ship?
No,
I haven't seen anything.
I'm glad you haven't, because the outside looks like a prison. Like, you show up to this compound and we're like, what is, like, there are trucks outside and there's like, it looks like a warehouse. It has a fence around it. Like, you have to go through security. You have to have a you know, like our Lyft driver that took us from, because we stayed at Disney Hotel a couple days before to do the parks. And then we went from there to this, but, you know, we had to take a Lyft. They don't have a transport that takes you between. I think that's something they need to figure out.
That's surprising.
Like, we had to, I think they're expecting most people to drive themselves. It's like, well, car rentals are really expensive right now, and like, you know, it doesn't make sense to just have it sit there for days. But, you know, so you have to go up to a gate and they have to like make sure you're on the list, and then like one car at a time, you know, 2 different gates go up. There's like crew members have to go in through a thing, but you look at the building and it just looks like a compound, and you're like, they need to do something to make it look like something. But the concrete thing you're talking about, Ralph, is the terminal, and then you take a shuttle up to the ship. So the ship isn't docked there. So when you get on, you know, the elevator, it's actually like you know, like a shuttle, and like video screens are going that are showing you like flying up into space. I think you even go into lights. You might even go to light speed to get there, if I remember correctly. But you know, it's once you're within those confines where that concrete wall that you're talking about, you're in the show of it. But pulling up the building, you're kind of like, what am I getting myself into? You know, like
the concrete wall reminds me of the bunker from Jurassic Park where they have to go and turn the power back on.
And that's sort of what it looks like there. You're right. Yeah. But just the outside of the building looks a little bit. They need to theme it up a little bit.
Right. Scott wants to know, do they do anything to simulate motion while on board the ship?
No, I had hoped they did, but they don't. They do some things with lights, you know, and sound to make you feel like something's happening. But they don't move it. You know, like there's no like there's no.
It feels like a big area to have on a.
Yeah, it's like a huge, you know, it's a huge building, but you know, like one of the things when you're on a cruise ship on the ocean, like one of the aspects is like, oh, I'm feeling this thing moving, but it would be hard for them to do that for this size of a thing. Obviously, like I think the elevator, you know, the ship moves a little bit, you know, like you can feel that. But it's just you know, that's solid ground underneath you, which is good, I guess. But
there are no windows.
Cruise for people that don't like the sea.
Yeah.
My sister was wondering if it felt claustrophobic.
It didn't really. I was worried about that also because there aren't windows. They have what's called a climate simulator, which is like just an outdoor area. It's enclosed, but you know, you can go out, you can see the sky, and they say, oh, you know, we're simulating what the climate's like on Batu. You know,
I saw some videos from there. It's a very clever way of doing a bit of an outside
so you
space.
can go outside.
Yeah.
I don't know what smokers do, like, because you can't smoke out there. Like, they might have a secret, like not a secret, but like a way for them to go to a real outside area. No, nothing.
I don't know. I know in Disneyland you can't smoke anywhere.
Oh, I guess that's true. But I'm just thinking, like, if you are a smoker and you know, have a nicotine addiction or whatever, and you are stuck somewhere for 2 full days, well, I guess you get to go to Batu, but you can't smoke there either. You know, like you would think there's some sort of accommodations they would make for something like that. But I don't recall seeing anything, but they might have a way to let you out if you need to get out. But to answer the actual question I was asked, it did not feel claustrophobic.
Good.
And the spaces are very wide open. The rooms are surprisingly big. Like we had whatever the smallest possible room is, you know, because it's like, and when I had a week window where it would work for me to go. So when I called, we priced out everything. Like, okay, what days would work in this, and just found whatever the cheapest option was, you know. So it was, you know, whatever it was, and then my wife and I split the price, you know, so that kind of like cut it down also, you know, because you know they give you the total, and then. But what I'm saying, like the room would sleep 5 people. It was
the one that you had even.
The one that we had, the smallest room. Wow. Yeah. So it was like a double bed, and then 2 bunk beds, and then a pull-out bed. You know, so if you're fine sharing a room with people, I think it would really like. I don't know how the price increases over like a shared situation. I don't think it goes up like per person the same amount if you're doing like. I think it's a room plus like a fee per person that's in that room. But, you know, for 2 people, I think it would be the same price for 1 person. So I don't know if you're adding a 3rd, 4th, 5th, like in one room, how much that would be. But I just think like, oh, you know, if we had some friends that we were fine sharing a room with, like there's space.
You could cut the cost right down. So
it was like.
Presumably.
Yeah. And so, again, I don't know what the bigger rooms because we didn't like interact in that way. We're like, hey, can we see what your room looks like? You know, like if you guys are in one of those deluxe suites, that's 2 floors, you know, which I like, those are insane.
That's something that I've not seen anything about yet is those suites.
Yeah. But also just one quick comment. In the room, they have a, like an intercom that you can talk with a droid that's like on the deck or on the, the bridge. And this AI or whatever it was so good that they would ask you a question, you would answer, and they would reply back very fittingly with what you said, and like give you some new information about what like things you could do or what you should be doing. And then the next time you talk to them, they call back the things you talked about before, and then ask for your advice about things. And like, I don't know, it was like crazy. We're just like,
that's
okay,
impressive.
Trying to throw the thing off, and it's just like, kept leading you like
a droid concierge, essentially.
Yeah,
that really remembers you. Yeah.
I just saw a video on Star Wars YouTube channel that talked about that AI.
Yeah,
and it is an AI, and
we assumed it was because it's like because it'd have to talk
still
to
at the
every
beginning
room
stages.
if they had like staff people like typing in responses.
So you said it was just you and your wife that went on this trip. You said that you saw a few kids. What do you think what the ratio was of everyone that was there?
Okay, so
I'm guessing that your 2 days was sort of a sellout, essentially.
Yeah, I think it was a sellout. I don't think there were any. Yeah, because it was early on, I think it was a sellout.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I would say for children, like probably under 11 or 12, let's say, there were maybe, I don't know, 30 or 40 of them. Like, they were kind of all running around. Well, maybe that's too many. That might be too many.
And how many
it might
people?
Have been about 20. I would say about 20. And then there were some teenagers and then like some 20s, but it was like, it was a mix. It was like families.
Okay.
And like some families that were just like so hardcore with like amazing costumes the whole time and like changes of clothes. And then some people that were just like, hey, we're just here for a fun vacation, like whatever. My kid likes Star Wars, so I'm going along, But yeah.
And how?
So go ahead.
How do you get to Batuu?
So there is a launch pod that you go into. Essentially, it's a box truck but you don't see the box truck. You go into like a shuttle. And so inside's all themed, and then you can feel the truck driving, but it's kind of like they have sounds of like rocket stuff going on inside. And so it's literally, the hotel is literally directly behind Batuu. So you just have to drive like down a quick street, and then you come in by the Thai Echelon. There's like an entrance there, but there's like a hallway, like an outdoor hallway that you walk through once you get off, but you don't see the truck at all. You get on board, welcome, and the droid's talking to you and, all this stuff. And then
that's your private entrance essentially from.
Yeah. It's a private entrance. You have to, they give you these when you arrive, different magic bands that have your name on it. And then this gives you access to all the stuff on the ship. Like you'll use this to try to get into a certain room and it'll say, oh, you don't have access. So then once you finish a mission, suddenly you now have access to that room.
That's very cool.
So you're kind of building as you go.
Yeah.
You that takes care of everything, right? The band. Does that include food?
Food's all covered. The food's already, you don't even have to scan in for food.
That's cool.
All right.
I see Stevie's question. We don't eat seafood or shellfish, so we didn't have any of the blue shrimp, but we did see it at the table next to us. So it was very kind of cool the way they have the blue shrimp there. The food though was extraordinary. Like we're not foodies. We very basically like we eat off the children's menu if we could, just like whatever, like a basic, but I was like, I'm going to try everything that's not fish or whatever. And it was so delicious and it was so well presented. Everything was amazing. And that was all, as I mentioned, like there are like 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, and 2 dinners. It's all included. And you can get a meal on Batuu included as well, though we actually went out of Batuu and ate at a different quick service. There's one quick service thing for free that's loaded on your Magic Band, or they call it an M band.
So it's like a Ronto wrap or something.
Yeah, you can get a Ronto wrap, or you can go into the docking bay 7 or whatever that one's called, and then and get a meal there. But it's unlimited like drinks. They have snacks throughout the day in the atrium that you can just go grab. If you want alcoholic beverages, you do have to pay for those. But we also don't drink alcohol. So we're like, I'm a little bit sad that we didn't try. Like I was like, oh, we're going to spend so much time in the Sublight Lounge because it's like really cool in there. And there's like a hollow sabacc table in the middle. And it was like, so I played like one round of hollow sabacc. And so I'm getting distracted because there's so many things, but there were other not cast members, but other guests. Like there were these guests that kind of like planted themselves at the sabacc table and they were playing, and they would like throw in like things to gamble with, and like we weren't gambling. I mean, money, like fake money shows up on your hollow screen, but it's like this giant table, and your hollow cards show up in front of you, and then you kind of punch the things you want to keep. So I won the round, and these people had made gifts to give to people. Like, so they gave me this like bag of gifts with like a little note inside that says, from a fellow supporter of the First Order, keep this or re-hide it, and it made like a little necklace, that they kind of it says chosen one on it, and it has a picture of like a lightsaber battle, or it's a little bracelet.
And that was other guests that made that.
The other guests made this. Yeah. So it's just like, they're like, we're going to play into this and just have fun. One other guest we saw, well, I mean, we saw a ton of guests that were dressed up, but on the way in, there was a guest dressed like Matt from like the radar tech, that the Kylo Ren in disguise. And so we're just like, oh, this is so great. Like, this is so fun that you did this. And he's like, oh yeah, thanks. And then he called us over. He's like, hey, I ran into Kylo Ren and he told me to give you this. And he gave us this card he had made, which is based on that sketch, after the rain, comes the rainbow. And then with the little note, about, sorry, I killed your son, Kylo. Like, that was, and this is like a homemade card.
That's great.
And the guy just like, he pulled it out of a little pouch, and it's like, it's just amazing what people went through to put,
go into
their things together and just to interact with others.
Jeremy asked us if the food was filling.
Yeah. Each service, well, okay, so the breakfast and lunch were buffets, so you could just go back and get as much as you want.
Oh, okay.
And it's open for like a 3 or 4 hour window, so you can just go and fill it. But yeah, like there was like, the basic ingredients were, like eggs and potatoes, but they were just made in a certain way. Like there was.
I was going to say, the presentation on all the food looks ridiculous. It looks so cool. It looks otherworldly, which is
it really does. And they have other names for it. And then the dinners were like 4 courses each night. So you could definitely eat enough. And there were some things on there that Erica's like, I don't really eat this. And they're like, okay, is there something else you want from the menu? And they're like from the kids menu. And so they brought her different things, so that she was, and so we were definitely full by the end of the meal. And, but the
fact, like, I realized that the food, everything was included and everything.
Yeah, it's part of
that's great. And when you think about the cost of food and drink at a Disneyland or anything, like, it really does eat into a big chunk of that price. So it's like, okay,
that's covered, which is nice.
It's still very
expensive.
It's still very expensive. I'm not trying to like downplay that or anything, but it's like, come on, like that's a few $100 right there at least.
Yeah. I see a question here about like COVID from Scott.
Right.
So it was. So we went to Disney like parks the couple days leading up to it, and so everywhere there were masked because it's like 0 masks anywhere except on the bus. Like any enclosed thing, you have to wear a mask, like a bus, transportation, things like that. But we so we're like mask up, this and that. But we just kind of made the decision like, okay, for this, we're not gonna wear masks unless, and like I would say 1% of people wore masks in this thing. And so we're just going to have to trust like that our vaccine works and our boosters work. And then if we get sick, it's not going to be bad. And then, but like on any enclosed thing that, like for the little shuttles and the elevators that you share with people, like put on a mask. But it's pretty wide open spaces. And we're just like, all right, we're just going to roll the dice, a little bit on this. But
was there any, did you guys have to prove like vaccinations or anything? Have you guys got much of that? I don't know.
No, Florida doesn't really.
Florida,
yeah, of course.
But so we just hope that people that are coming to this type of event are, but you never know. You never know who does what. Or, but we're just like, and the funny, we didn't really spend that much time like in close proximity to people. Mm-hmm. Other than like the characters. And I'm like, okay, are they concerned about, COVID testing and this and that, but again, like we live in New York, and New York still has a lot of restrictions on that. So like we wear masks almost all the time here. But it's all lifting, but we're still like, okay, we're going to still wear our mask. We're going to do this, stay away from people when we can. But yeah, for that, we just decided we're going to trust, and then if we get sick, hopefully it's doesn't get us, so
well, that's it. I mean, like
tests, and
it's just on a weird COVID tangent, which we don't really do on this show. The UK's pretty much in the last sort of month or so has sort of just gone, we're over it. And
we were there in December, and they were okay, now masks on public transportation, and so many people were like, I'm exempt, and it's like, are you really?
We've been dealing with that for years.
We had to do so many tests to come in and out of the UK, and then we saw all that lifting. We're like, okay, is this thing gone, or are people just sick of it? But
it really does feel like people are just sick of it. But I mean, I had the dentist this morning, and it's things like that. In situations like that, people are still being good and masking up, which is nice, because Alf and I are both sick at the moment, and without vaccines, without masking in appropriate places, then who knows? This could be a lot worse. So get vaccinated, people.
Yes.
Right.
Please.
Right. Merch.
Yeah. So
merchandise. There's two bits of merch that I want, which I probably won't get, but the droid that they have there, the remote control droid and the lightsaber.
The little guy, the SK,
they both look so cool.
Or whatever his name is.
They are cool. It's a really cool color scheme.
Yeah. So the merch situation, like you come in and there's like a little shop. So
first thing, right?
Well, pretty much. Like you come in, there's like, elevators, you can see out the viewport through the bridge window, and there's like kind of a big balcony area where a lot of the action happens, but and then just a star map, and then like the shop is right there. But they lead you to your chamber, your cabin first. So you walk by all this stuff. And it's like, I need to go in the shop, but like, okay. So we go to our cabin, and they explain how the droid thing works and all that. And then I was like, okay, first off, we're going to the shop. I want to see what they have. Most of the stuff I had seen already on Shop Disney, because like for like maybe 2 months prior to your cruise, you can start buying stuff from Shop Disney, and up to a month after, if it's available. But like the Shop Disney stuff, like I went back on a week before, and it's like all they had were the head tails, like that you could buy. And I was like, oh, well, what about all the clothes and all that stuff? But they had all the clothes and things. I'm a pin collector. So I was like, okay, I'm going to buy pins, so I bought myself like this, see that it's like,
cool. It's very clean, very nice.
Yeah, that one's clean. And one of just
looks like
the
Beskar.
ship,
yeah.
Can you even see? And then just another one of the ship. So I was like, okay, that's cool. Well, there we go.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Yeah, they're really nice.
Yeah. Oh, and I never knew how to pronounce this. Like I always called it Chandrila, or no. And they called it wait, well, how now I can't know. Now I'm confused.
Is it Chandrila?
Yeah, it's more like Chandrila.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
wow.
Really? That's how? Because I think I pronounced it how you do too. And I was like, what? That's how it is. So the merch
mine has just come from audiobook.
I know. Mine comes from reading it, in novels and stuff. And you're like, I don't know.
Mother's homeworld.
Yeah. So then they had like droid stuff there. They had, all this kind of cool stuff, and then like jewelry, but it was all geared toward this star line, this cruise line. And you're like, all right. And then Erica was like, I might want to buy this jacket. It was like kind of a cool jacket, but mostly because it was kind of cold on the ship, and all her costumes were like sleeveless, like things. And she's like, and I was like, but then she ended up wearing like some other jacket she had that worked. But she's like, do I want to pay $100 for something I'll wear for 2 days? And but anyway,
is it the sort of jacket that you'd be able to get away with in the real world?
Sort of. I mean, it had like this. It had this symbol on it, which people wouldn't really know what it is, but you could get away with it. It was like like a jacket, and just like a clean look that you could wear in the real world without someone being like, "Who's this guy doing Star Wars?"
The Galactic Starcruiser logo reminds me so much. Every time I see it, reminds me so much of the old making of Star Wars logo that me and Ralph both sort of saw and pointed out in one of the very early documentaries that's just on a door.
Oh, yeah.
Do we still have that on a t-shirt, Ralph?
Yeah, we have that on a t-shirt. You can go down in the bio down here and look at that. I when I recreated that shirt, I realized what that symbol was.
Okay.
It's a key.
Ah, okay.
It's the outline of a key.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's got the little points. Yeah.
Stevie asks, there's a full-size droid on the ship, right?
Yes, there's a full-size droid that's rolling around. That's that SK, that droid that you said you wanted the remote control version of.
Yeah.
That's full-size droid rolling around, like the panels open up, this and that, and it's kind of like you can interact with it, it beep, 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 you take a picture with it, but it's like kind of rolling all over the place.
It's not just on rails up on the balcony sort of.
Right. No,
thing.
yeah,
Cool.
it's out on the floor with everyone.
That's great.
It's a character unto itself, in that you can like interact with it, but you don't understand what it's saying. Like that Rhodian character that you've probably seen, like the artwork. That thing is incredible. That character is incredible because the face moves and she speaks in Huttese. Like
perfect.
So you don't understand what she's saying, but she's talking to you and she's like, and you're like, what? And so it's just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm supposed to know what's going on. And then, like someone will come over that's also a character and like translate for her, but she's around a lot. She was the first character I saw.
That's great.
Like
cool.
you can just like go up to her and talk to her.
I think that's key, having a character where it's like full mask, full alien, and it's like, bang, you are in it. Like, here is one of the first people that you're going to see and interact with.
That was what my only complaint when I first went to Galaxy's Edge was that there wasn't enough characters walking around. Granted, we went when it rained.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere characters is I think a big draw for me with this.
Yeah, so the fact they had a droid, they had the Rhodian, they had Twi'lek, which was that Gaia, the musician.
Cool. Yeah.
And she walks around too, like you can interact, but it's like kind of whoa, Gaia's here.
She's a big celebrity, of course.
Yeah, big celebrity's here. And then there's another character that like I ended up interacting with a ton. Like we got really invested in his storyline, and he was like same type of character as like Ahsoka Tano. Like what are those called? Togruta?
Togruta.
Something like that. And so like we got really played into his story, and he's not one of the characters that you get missions for. Like you don't get messages from him. He was a guest on the ship, but he's one of their characters. And then I found it interesting because I looked up, as I said, after I got back, and other versions of that character are not the alien. They're just like a different type of character. And I'm like, whoa.
Oh, okay.
Without the head stuff. It's just like, oh, that's interesting that they kind of have that option to mix that up a little bit.
That is cool. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Quickly going back to merchandise, just one quick second.
Yeah,
no pool on there. Answer Scott's question just popped up. So when we got off the ship, there was a second merchandise shop that we did not know was going to exist. And this one had merchandise that said, well, actually, I got this pin set that's all the places that we went.
Wow.
Bespin, Coruscant, Batuu.
That Starcruiser pin's awesome.
And the Starcruiser.
Yeah.
But then they had merchandise that actually says Galactic Starcruiser.
Okay.
This might be reversed, but it all says Galactic Starcruiser, and like this one opens up, it's the ship.
Oh, that's nice.
But so all these other ones say, Chandrila, Starline, but these ones say, Star Wars, Galactic Starcruiser, so it's like, okay,
the others are
not in universe.
Yeah,
so it's not in universe. Yeah. And they have T-shirts that say Galactic Starcruiser that you can't get in the park. So it's like, okay, cool, and they have different magic bands out there that say Starcruiser. And so I just picked up a couple pins because, again, I collect the pins. But it's just like, oh, that's a good way to get you after you've already been.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's kind of where I ended up talking to other people.
That's the more traditional sort of gift shop of
like after you finish the thing.
I survived this ride. Like,
right.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
But so that was I'm just kind of my props out here. Oh, they also give you a pin when you go to Batuu that says that you're like a passenger on the
Halcyon. That's nice. Halcyon. Yeah.
And so you wear this around so that they know to interact with you in certain ways.
Like other cast members from...
Yeah. And again, they do. Like they see it and they're like, oh, like when we went on Rise of the Resistance, because you get like a lightning pass for that. So you can literally walk right on that and Smuggler's Run.
It's awesome.
So you don't have to wait for, an hour and a half of
your VIP badge.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really good.
And so we thought this was so like a little bit blind to, like they call that pin the sigil of the select. It's like, that's a little elitist, don't you think? Oh, I guess we're special, but it's supposed to give you like, and then you have missions that are out there as well. Like you go to Oga's and you get like a special coaster that has a code on the back, like so that you scan that and it leads you to something else, So that's it's like, okay, cool. Like they're playing into a bit, but they're not as, it's really data pad heavy when you're on Batuu. Mm-hmm. Like the cast there know who you are and what you're doing. and they have like limited information. But I just really wish it was more like the characters give you a code word that you use back on the ship versus, come by if your data pad tells you to come here and look for this guy and he'll hand you a thing,
like if you're doing the Resistance sort of storyline,
Right,
you need to go and find Vimerati and things.
Yeah,
well, that'd be
we,
nice.
Yeah, we don't get to interact with those type of characters in that way, unfortunately.
No,
but just the guys standing outside Oga's taking reservations, like he knows when he sees your pin and you come up and say, hey, like Olga has information for me, and here you go, like, so they play into it, but it's not as much.
You get your hand out as opposed to getting your
right.
Yeah, I see. Yeah,
but yeah, it's just very cool that it bleeds into there, but at the same time, you kind of want to be back on the ship, like, because it's so crowded in Batu. Right now it's spring break, so it was nuts.
Right.
Like Disney property was like you couldn't get on anything. It was just like, so you're walking around, it's just like so crowded, and you're like, and you're just like, let me get through my mission so I can get back on the ship. Let me go on.
That's a testament to the Starcruiser. I think the fact that you don't want to be in the park as much as you want to be there. Like,
right. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And it felt. I remember there was a question that came up on Twitter when you mentioned that we were going to talk about this, about whether it felt more like Disney or more like Star Wars on the Starcruiser, and it feels more like Star Wars. Like you don't have the Disney, you don't feel the Disney bleed in. Like like. It didn't feel like a theme park. It felt like I'm part of this experience. I'm part of the Star Wars universe in here, which is kind of like why you get teary-eyed sometimes. Though, like when Star Wars music plays during certain, you're like, of course you're always going to cry when you hear some certain Star Wars songs come in. But and again, that it was sort of rare, but there's always music playing. But sorry.
So going off of the immersion aspect here, Scott D's got a question about the smells, because Disney is good at pumping in the smells in the parks and hotels.
Yeah.
Anything of note?
I actually do not have a sense of smell. I had a head injury when I was in my teens, and I lost it. But my wife was telling me that there's one thing they do that was very. During the second dinner, they have what's called a taste around the galaxy, and they had an element of it where they like brought in scents, like a sense of smell, like a scent before the food came out, so that it would enliven the taste of the food. And
cool.
So they're like, and they announce it like, this is going to happen first. Like they have kind of people like telling you this meal's from Mustafar and this one's from the
you got some charred Anakin smell coming
right,
in.
Yeah. I mean, it was like charred breads. It was like kind of
cool.
Definitely like it came from a lava type world.
Yeah.
But like they she just said it was incredible because she's like, oh my God, this smells good. Like she's like, usually when you have like something that seems like a chemical smell, like that's like a fake thing, you can tell. But this one, she's like, wow, this is incredible. Like she was like really noticing that type of thing. But they do try to bring that in as well.
That's brilliant. That's the sort of thing that I think, like, for all their flaws, like Disney do better than anyone else, is that complete level of immersion with smells and everything throughout the parks. It's great.
Let's see. I as part of my costume, I wore these giant goggles everywhere because I didn't want to just wear my glasses, but I can't see that well without them. So I was like, and then I was like, well, I guess I look like I have blue blockers on all the time. But it was just like, I had like 5 or 6 change of costumes. So it was just like, oh, well, then they know to look for this guy with these silly things on all the time.
It's pretty cool.
I just have my props up here from things that
there's glasses in Star Wars. We've seen it.
Yeah, there
twice.
There are some.
I mean, and we've now seen Luke with some goggles on as well. So everyone loves goggles.
Yeah, they've got some like goggle things, but they were it was kind of like it did take me out of it a little, like with the guy in the Mandalorian costume. Like you can't wear a helmet all the time, but he would put it on if someone wanted a photo. But he always had it on his arm. But he also had glasses, so I'm like, it took me out of his costume a little bit, but he needs to see. So it's like I really thought about like, oh, I should. I mean,
we watched Battle of Endor. We watched Battle of Endor last week, and there's some glasses.
There's a lot of things to take you out with that one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. Do we have any more questions in the chat?
I'm sure I had one a few minutes ago. I've completely forgotten. I've been so just interested in hearing you talk about it, Rick. It's been It's been really good. Like so okay, it is a lot of money.
Yeah.
When I first heard about Galaxy's Edge and a Star Wars hotel, which then became Galactic Starcruiser, I was like, okay, cool, right. I know that that's coming later. I'm not going to get to go to Galaxy's Edge probably for quite a while. And then with the sort of the delayed launch of this, or the sort of the later launch of this, I was like, cool, I'm going to wait, and I'll go and I'll do the whole thing all at once. I mean, depending on the prices and anything that they do, maybe some offers or something, I doubt I'm going to get to go on this for quite some time. Because, you add the cost of that onto the cost of getting over there. And and it's pretty cost prohibitive for everyone, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. But sorry, what was your question?
No. But it's one of those things that I love this sort of thing in Star Wars so much that I'm not writing it off completely. It is a case of, this is something that I really want to do. And basically the question is, like, take the money aside out of it. Like, is overall you love the experience, but would you say that it's worth it for just diehard people like us, or is everyone going to be able to get something out of it?
I think everyone can get something out of it. I mean, the cost is really a limiting factor. They send a survey right after, and it's like, I wrote a big diatribe about how Star Wars fans need to be able to access this, and you're blocking out so many people, and then I hope you lower the cost. The problem is going to be when they lower the cost, if they ever do, people are going to be like, oh, it failed. Like, you're going to get those people like, haha, I knew it. Right. They couldn't sell it. But it's like, who cares? Like, if you can go for
you
cheaper,
get to go now. Yeah. I think the key and the hope there would be that if by lowering the cost, they're not diminishing the experience and so.
Yeah. You would hope that they find a way to leverage everything they've already built. Like, because this story is like so intertwined. Every character has so much stuff going on, but it also has to tie all into the main story that they're telling, that it's just like, it is really complicated, everything that they've built. So I have a couple quick points to make about this. So the cost is too high. We definitely felt it was worth it. We loved it. We once we paid for it, we just forgot. Forget about it. Like, the money's gone. Now let's just enjoy this. Like, if you're focusing so much on the money, then you're going to be like, oh, I could have bought whatever else with this, or I could have done, it's like, if that's all you're going to care about, it's going to be hard to enjoy it. But once you just say, like, they make you pay 3 months in advance, like, you have to be fully paid. And so then it's just like, okay, that money's been gone for 3 months. Let me just enjoy this now.
Yeah, I'm not missing it now.
I feel like before we started this, I was like, I don't really need to go. But the fact that your ticket, your admission into the park, your all your meals, all your snacks, pretty much everything except merchandise is taken care of.
Yeah.
I feel like once you tear that Band-Aid off, you can now have peace of mind to just go have fun.
Yeah.
If you allow yourself to just go have fun. And I think I would prefer that instead of, did I bring enough money?
Yeah. Like, the only money I spent was just buying some little tchotchkes like little pins for myself, and then we had spent a few days beforehand where you have to buy all your own food, and you're like, yikes, this is expensive, but I think if they just had a way to, and I think there's a comment in there about just like, give an option for like a low, like we bought the least expensive room, but again, that was, a lot of money. It wasn't the price that everyone throws out there is like, it's this much. Steerage class, then you can go and experience it and be part of it. Like, I don't need to know there are extra features in the more fancy rooms. Great, we missed out on it. I don't know what it is, so I don't know what I missed out on.
Yeah, you're not missing it because you don't know about it.
But at the same time, like, we got so much out of it. And the people we talked to did, like, even my wife and I did so many different things that afterwards we're like, oh, wait, I didn't tell you about this. Like even though we had the same experience, we had completely different experiences.
That's brilliant.
And so it was very cool that we got to have that, and she's still like, so like in awe of all the like fun she had on the the First Order side of it, like being part of that like sinister thing. There's such a major story element that I wish I could tell you about because it's so funny, but I won't. But because I don't want to ruin it for people, but just like a funny thing showed up on her schedule. Like they give you like a list of things to do, and she's like, this would never show up on a cruise schedule, but it's just really. So she took a photo of it because once you leave, like your datapad stuff goes away from this. Like I can't access my datapad messages that came in. Okay. So, but again, the fact that you can have these different experiences, but going back to something you were talking about earlier, we have been talking about like, would we go again for this
cost? What I was going to ask. Yeah.
And for the price that it is, I don't know that we would. Like it was worth it to go. Like we have this experience where we're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I recommend any diehard Star Wars fan find a way to do it. And also, like you're saying, like someone that's just like, oh yeah, I like Star Wars. Like you can get into it if you're going to play along, or even if you just want to watch the things that happen for everyone to see. Like that's still very fun. But unless you're going to like participate, you're going to feel like, oh, I was bored for 2 hours during this time, and like, oh, I just sat in my room. Like we went to our room like because we were wearing boots. It's like, oh, our boots are like starting to hurt our feet after a while. And then like, let's take them off for a few minutes. And then I was like, I'm going to go back out and see if anything's happening just because it's like we had a half an hour till dinner. And so like a few minutes after I got out there, I sent a text to my wife. I was like, you need to get out here right now. And so she comes out there like all this stuff happened that wasn't on the schedule. And it's like, wow, we would have missed all of this. We would have gone to dinner. We wouldn't have known any of this major stuff happened. And so, but going back to the question of like, would we go back? It's hard to say that we would spend a huge chunk of money to go back when we know already the major things. We'd have to go in with the mindset of like, after a few years, like let's go in and just make sure we do different things than we did the first time.
I was going to say, you'd go in. Do you think there's enough on the other branches that you didn't explore that you'd get a good enough experience?
There's definitely so much stuff that goes on that you're not party to. Like, I find there's a way that you can break into the brig, and then you can hear what's happening in another room from there because there's a grate. So like I went in there because I saw some like the engineering room was locked. So I went in there and I was like listening in on some major thing going. I was like, how do I get in? Like, and I couldn't get in there, but like, so there are things that you can do that it's like, oh, I want to know how to be party to this.
My question about those bits, like the brig and the engineering room and the lightsaber training, things like that. What's the level of like, I don't know, the sort of age, I guess, of those? Because like, say the lightsaber training, from what I've seen, it looks quite young skewing. No,
it was in ours there weren't any kids actually. Okay, it was all adults, and it's really fun. Okay, because cool. I don't want to give away too much, but
no details.
They line up people, and then you're fighting against a remote, but you kind of like, and it goes through various levels of like difficulty, and it's very interactive and fun, and it's not for kids. There are some things that you're like early on, my schedule that starts showing up, a month before we go had all this stuff on it that disappeared by the time we went. Like I didn't like build a model ship. That wasn't on there. Like it was on early on, but it wasn't on when we were there. Yeah. They announced this giant gala. So we're like, okay, we need to get clothes for the gala. By the time we got there, the gala was reduced to like a fashion show of your best clothes, like your best clothes. And that was almost entirely children in Star Wars costume, like dressed up as Rey and dressed up as Kylo Ren, like that. So it's like, oh, okay, we're not going to walk this runway with toddlers, right?
Yeah.
And again, it was like 10, 15, 20, but the adults, most everything. The bridge training is for everyone. There weren't really any small children on there when we were there. It's like teenage and up. But I'm sure it's small. But again, they can't see the controls. It's a complicated thing. Like you learn how to run all the different stations in the bridge, and it's kind of like a giant.
It's not just
video game
hit this big button.
No. It's like you have to do stuff, and you have to watch. It's like a giant, as I said, a giant video game. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like a video game because you're doing like training session to learn how to run this and that, so that all plays into it. One thing that's very cool about it is they have it in such a way that they could easily change the story. Like in 2 years, they could say, all right, let's remap this to a new story.
I was going to say, is it sort of conducive to like a 2.0 essentially, like in however long?
Yeah. So they could definitely do they could build a new story and go into Scott's question about whether or not they could do it in a different time frame. We definitely think they could do it in another time frame, except for the fact that you have the excursion to Batuu, because Batuu is locked in a time frame between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. It's
so like lore wise, they've done a really good job with the Halcyon of including it in every timeline. Like,
because it's like we're on
in the High Republic.
75th year is what they kind of announced when you're on there.
It's in the High Republic novels that I've been reading and loving recently. Like we just found out via a comic series that Han and Leia have their honeymoon on the Halcyon.
That's awesome. Yeah, so they could easily like use the same ship and then just add a new character story in there very easily, because it's all branded
like event weekends like once or twice a year where well in advance, like you book it out, like you probably a couple of years in advance know that this is going to come, so that they're not selling it too early,
right?
But like that would be very cool if they did things like that. I think that'd be really interesting. And if they did lower the price in general, those are the ones that you can then whack back up at the full price.
Because I think they could, I think they could, if they lowered the price. I mean, I really hope they find a way to do that, because more people need to be able to experience it. They've priced it out of so many people's chances, and that's they didn't need to. I mean, well, they because of the limitation on the rooms and all that, and again with the new CEO, it's kind of like, or CFO, whoever, it's like that guy, all he wants is money. It's just like, just please let Star Wars fans experience this.
It does feel like it's sort of one of the last like bits of Bob Iger being bled over into. Yeah. It's a shame. It's interesting though. It's one of those things that it's also the first of its kind of this level of this scale, which is what Star Wars has always done. Has been on the forefront of a lot of things. So
they could do a Marvel one very easily. Like
I think. If this was, and I mean, not saying that it's not a success, but if this was like a runaway, like they're sold out for like 3 years already, sort of something like that at this price, I think we would start to see 2 or 3 more of these popping up very quickly.
Yeah, because
but it'll be interesting to see what else comes similar and what they pare back, what they do differently.
I'm just gonna see if I have some other points. I made notes, so I would make sure to cover things.
Well, Fetz asked about things like complimentary toothbrushes.
Oh yeah, you know what? They do give you that, and we forgot to take ours.
Oh, no.
They have a little tin in the bathroom that has like toiletries, and it's branded. And they're like, "Oh, that's for you to take with you," and we forgot. And when you mentioned it just now, I was like, "Oh my god, we forgot to grab that." They sell them also in the gift shop, like for $30, and she's like, "Oh, this was a free little thing we could have had." It has like a branded washcloth and like little like things in it that all have the Chandrilla Starline, things. I got to go back now just to pick that up.
Yeah, that's worth it just for that. Comfort wise, you said the rooms were good size, but was everything nice and comfy?
Yeah, bed was comfortable. Great. Roomy shower. Like double door between the room and the toilet, like, so you're kind of like, hey, you even have privacy, like, so it's nice. Yeah, it was cool. Very spacious and very comfortable. There are plenty of places to sit. Sorry, what?
Is there like ambient sounds in the room, like space sounds?
In the room, like our window looked out into space, but I don't recall any ambient sounds like of like space, like stuff going on. But the scene is constantly changing outside. We're going by different planets. We're going like there's some ships going by. There's star scenes. So there's always like they've got like 2 days worth of footage outside your viewport.
And you said you went to a few different planets as well. You said like you had Bespin and Coruscant and Batuu. Like, is that as the 3 days or the 2 days, 2 nights sort of go past? Is that you're a different one each day sort of thing?
Yeah, well, like we stopped at Bespin for our nighttime celebration or whatever.
Okay.
But I don't remember noticing like Cloud City, like specifically, other than just saying, "Hey, we're in the Bespin."
You're in Bespin,
area.
yeah, sure.
But
you're not in atmosphere,
right? Yeah. We're not kind of like, "Hey, there's cloud cars flying by," or whatever this is called.
Yeah.
So yeah,
cloud cars. All right. I don't think I have any more questions.
Not that I can
Fetz
think
was
of.
hoping that they do themed seasons.
Yeah, that would be cool if they did. If they found a way to
like
do
the
that.
Life Day.
Yeah.
Would be
Oh
awesome.
yeah, do a Life Day celebration. That would be really
great. I mean, they seem to be embracing it every year a little bit more, don't they? So
right.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Overall, sounds like it was worth the trip.
Yeah, we loved it. And we did go into it like, oh no, what if this sucks? This is what if this is like, and then we'll be like, fine, we'll have something to talk about that it's that it's horrible. But and
you can tell people an honest opinion if that's the case. Yeah,
exactly. And because we weren't kind of special invitees to be there, we did feel no obligation to like sell it, other than the fact it's just like we want to talk about like the things that happen. Yeah. It's like we don't know people that have been on it. I guess I'll contact Joey Fatone. He was on a few days before us. I saw pictures of him like talking about it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Contact that guy. I saw way up in the comments that someone's friend was on our same thing. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
it's a neat. Yeah, if you could go in a bigger group.
Yeah, that would be fun if you could go with a larger group of people.
That'd be great. It's one of those things.
Do different things.
Yeah, because it's so expensive, it would be really. I think it would always be really, really hard to do that. But if you got together like I don't know 6 to 10 people, like a few couples and stuff, that would be great. That feels like the ultimate way of doing it.
Yeah, I think the biggest group we saw together was like 4 or 5 people, and that's a family.
Yeah, I was going to say it's always going to be a family,
like parents and a couple kids.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they probably just everyone could just share the same room, but I didn't see any like large groups that seemed to be touring together. But everyone was.
Is the dining room like set up for that sort of thing? If they needed a bigger table,
yeah. The dining room could, because it's like booths around the edges, and then like tables that could be put together. Then there's the captain's table in the middle, which gets extra special things. Man, I tried to get that captain's table. It's like only like $35 extra to get the captain's table, but it was like sold out. And then I'm guessing back in case anyone cancels, and it's like I tried like 10 times.
Are you eating with cast members at that point? Or
yeah, and cast members are coming through the dining room like as part of their mission, like and then kind of like interacting a little bit with guests, and then going about their business. But they're also doing stuff because there are 2 different dining sessions. There's like an early and a late dining, but they're doing stuff outside the room. So these cast members are like, they're working so hard. The fact that they have so much to do and keep their story, and the fact that they stay like, and they start knowing people and like referencing, they have little microphones on, little earpiece. So I don't know if they're also getting intel like from someone else, like, oh, that guy's with the first order, like, because they know when you've worked with someone else. It's just like, that is a level of like intricacy that you have to wonder how much backstage is happening,
Fetz asked as well, it's like, is there any cast members out in the middle of the night? Like,
I went out, I mean, because we had not early morning stuff, but you're there the first night, and the second day you go to Batu, which is kind of starts at 8 a.m. Like I went out, I think the latest that night I went out was like 11:30, and I didn't really see anyone. I think they kind of end their story stuff, but you can still do missions on your data pad.
Okay, cool.
Finish stuff, like things are coming through, but I didn't see any characters. I did want to like, I went to the Starlight Lounge because they have like, you can refill your water bottle or do whatever in the kind of this big machine that they have out there. So I was like, I put on one of my change of costumes. Like if it was this jacket with like a Figrin and Dan t-shirt under it, like I'm going to go out there in my, and see what's going on.
Go see your band t-shirt, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was my band t-shirt.
Yeah.
But I didn't see any characters out there when I did that. But
you mentioned that you don't drink. For people that do drink, is the bar open just at all times?
Yeah, bar's open the whole time. That's good. Just like so, and there was always room in there, like to sit down. There were always tables open every time I went in there. But we would just go in there because the ambiance of it was really fun and cool. And then sometimes, there were people playing music in there, like, because there's like some of the characters play music, and so they would be in there doing something, and so it's just like, oh, this feels like kind of a fun little vibe here. But there were people in there with like fun drinks, and then you had like free snacks also in there that you could order off a menu, like free like bar type of snacks, a type of a chips and dip thing. But we didn't end up. We spent so little time in there. Like that was something I regret, like not going in there and just sitting down and ordering a fun drink. Like we've been to Oga's Cantina and done that, which is really fun.
Yeah,
but it's a similar feel, except it's more like it almost looks more like a bar you see on Coruscant, like in when they go there and no, like, yeah.
Some of the cocktails and stuff looked amazing. They looked like in the same way that the food is all decorated out. Were there non-alcoholic versions of those?
There were, and that's what we would have gotten.
Good.
Yeah. So, but again, for most of the alcoholic drinks, you pay for. So I think Fetch just asked that. You do you pay for those, and I think you just scan your band, and then they'll charge you at the end of the trip.
Okay.
But it was like $12 for an alcoholic beverage or whatever.
Yeah, they're not going to be cheap.
No,
but once everything's already taken care of,
you're like, hey, this isn't bad if I'm only paying X amount for this many. For these 2 days.
It is a lot, but I feel like having that peace of mind going into it is a lot better.
Yeah. Room and board is really cool. Is taken care of.
Yeah. I see Scott was asking about tipping. There wasn't really we thought that we would need to tip the service staff, but there was nowhere like to do so. They give you a bill that says, everything's covered. Because we're like, like on a cruise ship, at the end they say, if you want to tip, do this and that, and we're like fully expected to, but there was nowhere to do that, and maybe we missed it, and I feel horrible if we did, because we expected we want to pay like the service staff to help us the whole time. And
is that generally done at Disney hotels?
Not at the hotel. Well, I mean, when you do food service or go to a bar, you usually tip,
Yep.
But if like on a cruise ship, you normally tip your room service people and your, but they give you little envelopes at the end that you would like divvy that up, or you could even credit card and assign certain amounts to certain groups. And that's sort of what we expected. And I think there was something in the, like that everything's included, including gratuities, but I don't know. I hope.
I mean,
that's the case
hopefully because of the price and everything, like all the cast members and the service staff are on board are hopefully getting paid well enough.
Right.
And they have in the buffet area, like they have like free soda machines and like metal cups to fill up, and they are all written in like Orabesh, the Star Wars language, like Coca-Cola and this and that. And they also have a machine for blue milk and green milk. So I got blue milk every time, just like why not? It's here. Have some fun. But so you can go in there whenever you want and get some blue milk.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming, Rich.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Really fun. Also, we need to have you back because we've been talking. I want you back on to talk about Portroids.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to, for those of you that don't know, go to portroids.com.
Yeah.
And you can see all of the
media, which is at Portroids.
What Rick does is he takes Polaroids of people of note, celebrities, public figures. He takes Polaroids of them and they sign them.
Yeah.
And he's got
going back to what, 2003?
I've got about 4,000 of them or so.
Incredible.
Yeah, and they're amazing. So what I've been wanting to do is just grab a bunch of Star Wars ones off of your site.
Yeah.
Have you on and just start telling us stories on each one.
Yeah, that'd be
Star Wars yearbook.
Yeah, that'd be
that's
really
definitely fun. That's definitely the type of thing that Data Link is built for.
Yeah. Like I was snapping Polaroids on board.
Oh,
like,
that's amazing.
Just different characters as I met them. Just like the captain. And I didn't ask him to sign it just because normally I ask people to sign like here's a Ben Stiller one that happens to be at my desk right now. Yeah. Just like I asked them to sign it after I take the photo. But on here I was like, I don't know if they're like if that works. Like the first picture I took was of the Rodian, and she's got those like kind of like fingers, and I was like, and then I didn't ask the others to, so I was just like, maybe I should have, but at the same time, it's just like that's fun to have the Polaroids of them. Just like snap a picture of everyone. Yeah, next time, exactly.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks to everybody in the chat.
Yeah.
A lot of great A lot of great questions. Help me out. I didn't have to talk too much. But yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah, and I look forward to do more data links soon.
Definitely. It's great fun.
Until then, go to liveactionstarwars.com. That's the only place you're going to be able to see data link episodes. These are exclusive to YouTube. They're not showing up on the audio feeds. So I don't know who I'm telling this to, but if you're for some reason here now, subscribe. Yeah. And leave comments. And since you're watching here and you're not part of the audio feed, head over to the audio feeds and leave reviews wherever you're listening, so that we get noticed and that we become big enough to where Disney invites us to the next
the relaunch
of their hotel.
Yeah, that's it.
So
the 2.0 launch.
We're putting this on your shoulders. So hit like, subscribe, all that stuff. So yeah, thanks again, and that's all I've got.
So yeah, Rick, thank you again. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Don't give it to hate.
Celebrate the love.
Punch it.